Hello, and welcome again to Level Your Playing Field. My name is Ginger Ferrer. My official name is Julia Estelle Ferrer. I'm named after my mom. And I've been advocating on the air for a little over a decade and a quarter, and within the community in the last couple of years, because I came to live in existence and I found other people living the same unconstitutional existence at such a heinous level that I had to speak to it. It is sometimes very difficult to keep a stiff upper lip, if you will, when you are trying to find justice in our own country, a country that promises that because of our Constitution, Bill of Rights, Emancipation Proclamation, and the Civil Rights Act. Yet not one moment of recordable time allows this for many, way too many citizens of this country, its territories, and other countries. Every single day, someone is using up our rights and dismantling it a piece at a time, figuratively speaking. Health-related issues that have caused so much pain, suffering, and death still unresolved. Still not banned in this country, still not holding those accountable who managed to reverse banned substances from our country and turning it into a billion-dollar business nation and worldwide at the cost of millions of known human lives, not to mention the unknown, but can safely be assumed. Why? Because many people do not realize or that their illnesses are related to the non-disclosure of caregivers, if you will excuse the term, medical providers, physicians, scientists, pharmaceutical companies, nursing, who have contributed to the pain, suffering, and death of innocent citizens by providing medications, drinks, and foods poisoned by artificial sanctioned sugar sweeteners in our beloved but hostage-held country. And this is not a one-size-fits-all. There are great nursing people, there are great physicians, there are great scientists, but it would appear that in order for them to function, they have to go along to get along. And those who step up are few and far between. Because if that was so, this hospital, for example, CMC, which is supposed to be a right-to-life hospital, would not have one iota of aspartame in its facility, in its food, in its medications, in its drinks, in the coffee shops that are housed within CMC, all providing artificial sugar sweeteners that have been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to poison humankind. And can you imagine, you're in a hospital trying to get better, and they're bringing you, especially if you're diabetic, a soft drink with aspartame in it, medications with aspartame in it, cough medication with aspartame in it. Now tell me, why does a prescribed medication need an artificial sugar sweetener, especially pills or capsules? Just think about that. Hostage held in the sense that our own governing sources and forces have done nothing for decades in re-establishing the ban on phenylalanine and all additionally identified artificial sugar substitutes that have poisoned and or caused the death of so many human and animal lives across this planet. It would appear that the history of man's inhumanity to itself has reached a level that not even Hitler could have dreamed of succeeding. So how much free anything do citizens of these United States have left? How many more decades before humankind, at least on the North American continent, becomes more like the Morlocks and the Eloys of the Time Machine written by H.G. Wells, where humankind has been reduced to carnivores and victims? When will all those that truly believe that this is okay, why haven't all those that truly believe that this is okay haven't stopped to realize that if the predators of our country run out of victims, they will start attacking their own, so to speak. The perceived desire to control absolutely appears to be an addiction they have to assume and consume every ticking moment of time. Wake up, our freedoms are being devoured by the perceived callous indifference of those perpetrators, seemingly with the blessings of our so-called protectors of our constitutional rights across the board. One could even go so far as to call them human piranhas, as in Ted Gatzis. Now, this is so tragic that it brought tears to my eyes when I was printing it out. Because if you remember that horrible plane crash where the pilot crashed it into the ground, killing everybody, he was under a doctor's care. Germanwings plane crash. Prosecutor says doctor felt co-pilot unfit to fly. However, a French prosecutor says that some doctors who treated the co-pilot who crashed a Germanwings jet felt he was unfit to fly, but did not tell his employees because of the German patient secrecy laws. Marseille prosecutor Bryce Robin told reporters in Paris on Thursday that co-pilot Andreas Lubitz had seen 7 doctors in 1 month before the March 24th crash, including 3 appointments with a psychiatrist. Robin says that some of the doctors felt Lubitz was psychologically unstable and some felt he was unfit to fly, but unfortunately, that information was not reported because of medical secrecy requirements. In Germany, doctors risk prison if they disclose information about their patients to anyone unless there is evidence they intend to commit a serious crime or harm themselves. Now, the fact that this guy was seen 7 times in 1 month, don't you think that would have usurped this concern about about the doctors going to jail when this man was obviously disturbed? You know, it's so ironic that this one man took the lives of so many when all of these doctors could have stopped that one man. And then if they had to face prosecution, so what? There would be 215 lives still alive today if they had taken the bull by the horns and risked everything. And that is the perceived viewpoint or opinion that as modern as times get, people still live in fear. And, oh, no, I can't do that. Oh, no. And so wrong keeps happening, and it's escalating. It has escalated to a point where the law doesn't even work anymore. The concerns for the rights of those being most offended is disqualified. It's dismissed because of who these entities are. You know, the only one that ever walked on water was Christ. Everybody else has to sink or swim. And they've been allowed to swim. Last week, I was addressing... I get very emotional because I've seen so many people who have suffered so much. And in the 20 in September, it'll be 26 years that I was introduced to hell. That it just drives me. It really just drives me. I can't stop. Now, last week, I thought I had this list with me, and I was speaking about the toxicity effects of aspartame in all of its names, whether it's NutraSweet, whether it's Sweet and Low, whether it's Splenda. Its chemical name is phenylalanine, PHENYLALANINE, and it was banned in this country until Donald Rumsfeld and his goose-stepping friends came along to lift the ban and inflict it on the world. Seizures and convulsions, dizziness, tremors, migraines, and severe headaches trigger or cause from chronic intake of aspartame. Memory loss, common toxicity effects, slurring of speech, confusion, numbness or tingling of extremities, chronic fatigue, depression, insomnia, irritability, panic attacks, common aspartame toxicity reaction. Marked personality changes, phobias, rapid heartbeat, tachycardia, another frequent reaction, asthma, chest pains, hypertension, high blood pressure, nausea or vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, swallowing pain, itching, hives, urticaria. If I mispronounce it, please forgive me. Urticaria. Other allergic reactions, blood sugar control problems, hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, menstrual cramps and other menstrual problems or changes, impotency and sexual problems, food cravings, weight gain, hair loss, baldness or thinning of hair, burning urination and other urination problems, excessive thirst or excessive hunger, bloating, edema, fluid retention, infection susceptibility, joint pain, brain cancer, pre-approval studies in animals, death. Also, it mimics symptoms or worsens the following diseases: fibromyalgia, arthritis, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, lupus, multiple chemical sensitivities, diabetes and diabetic complications, epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease or birth defects, chronic fatigue syndrome, lymphoma, Lyme disease, attention deficit disorder as in ADD and ADHD, panic disorder, depression, and other psychological disorders. And you can go to www.holisticmed.com/aspartame and avail yourselves. This is right here in Concord, New Hampshire. And it is a website that was provided by Mr. Mark Gold, who has been sharing this information for over a decade. So this is homegrown advocacy. And it reaches out into the world, just like Dr. Betty Martini's work reaches not just the United States and its territories, but the planet at large. When you see the suffering of another human being, and you get to know that it was caused by something that was banned in this country, you can't understand why it was allowed and why it is so important to keep all these companies flush with money so that they can continue to kill people, to contribute to their deaths. Monsanto and DuPont and all of these seed companies that jumped on the bandwagon. Last week, also, Betty Martini sent me a limited list. A limited list of some of the prescriptions that have aspartame in it. You should ask your pharmacist and your primary care, or whomever writes you, whatever medical professional writes you a prescription. Ask them if the manufacturer uses aspartame or phenylalanine or any kind of artificial sugar sweetener. Again, why an oral medication that is in pill form needs sugar in the first place. But here at the bottom, I was very surprised by this myself because I've been on asthma medication since 1989. If I mispronounce it, please forgive me, because like I said, I'm not a medical professional and I don't know Latin in that sense. Carbidopa and levodopa, 100 milligrams, Sun Pharmaceuticals. Clorazepam, clorazepam in zero point 0.5 milligrams or 1 milligram or 2.2 milligrams and 0.25 milligrams, all from the same pharmaceutical incorporated. Malt, alt, MAXALT-MLT, 5 milligrams, Merck and Company, and the same medication at 10 milligrams. Medazine hydrochloride, ondansetron hydrochloride orally, disintegrating at 4, 8, 4, 4, and 4 milligrams. The companies are Mylan Pharmaceuticals, Glenmark Generics, Sandoz Pharmaceuticals, and Caraco Pharmaceutical Laboratories. Now, I've been on Singular for about 20 years. Singular, 5 milligrams, Merck and Company. I stopped taking it about a year ago, and I lost 43 pounds or more, somewhere between 33 and 43 pounds, because of the bloatedness that is the side effect of a prescription that has aspartame in it. Zofran is made by GSK Pharmacy, Zomig, AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals, Zyprexa Zydis, Eli Lilly and Company, and Zyprexa Zydis 10 milligrams, Lilly, Eli and Company. And the other thing is that if your prescription company does not allow the non-generic ordered prescription from your doctor, you have to go to a substitute. And who knows what's in the substitute? Who knows what is in the substitute? You have to ask. And they have to tell you. Because last year when I found out about Singular, I asked a pharmacist, and he said my particular excuse me, not Singular. It was another medication that I can't think of right now. But anyway, I asked him for a listing of any prescription that I had that might have had an artificial sugar sweetener in it. And I believe it was Singular. I'm almost sure it was Singular. There is www.dorway.com, www.doorway with one O, DORWAY.com. There's also holisticmed.com, which is right here in Concord, and aspartamekills.com. And Dr. Betty Martini has been a staunch advocate for well over a decade. She's a Southern lady, and her husband was a preacher, and when he retired, he gave her all of his retirement money to start this advocacy website. And she's traveled all over the world meeting with other world leaders who are concerned about the pharmaceutical poisoning that's being generated across the planet by certain companies. And the same thing with foods, the same thing with seeds, and the fact that Monsanto and the Koch brothers have such a hold on the world in general. You know, I just don't get that. How did they gain that power, and why was it given to them? And one of the biggest contributors, again, was Donald Rumsfeld. And all of his posse that has since then escalated to such a control factor in that it would appear that you can't get these people to reverse the lifting of the ban and reinforce it, never to be allowed to be lifted again. When you have to make a profit at the cost of millions of lives, that is criminal. That's crimes against humanity. It doesn't matter that the crimes were a gun or a knife or a gas chamber. The fact is that they have contributed to the death of millions of human beings worldwide. worldwide. This is fructose, the definition of fructose for people with type 1 diabetes. Often called the fruit sugar, is a type of naturally occurring sugar found in many fruits. It's nearly twice as sweet as sucrose, table sugar, and can give a similar rise in blood sugar as sucrose. Fructose is commonly used to process foods partly because it's less expensive to produce than sucrose, and it takes less of it to produce the same level of sweetness. It is often consumed in the form of high fructose corn syrup, which is fructose that has been combined with corn syrup and chemically treated to increase the concentration and sweetness of fructose. High fructose corn syrup is found in thousands of foods and beverage products in the United States. Researchers have found some evidence that indicates the consumption of fructose in the form of high fructose corn syrup contributes significantly to weight gain and possible insulin resistance. And this comes from type 1 diabetes about.com. That's again type 1 diabetes about.com. Type 1 diabetes about.com. For those of you who have computers, who have families that are diabetic, there's a lot of websites out there that offer valid, proven, positive information of protectiveness and knowledge so that you can better address whatever your medical condition is, or that of a loved one, from a child to a very senior family member or friend. It says here, Dr. H.J. Roberts calls aspartame's component phenylalanine molecular Auschwitz in this April 15 interview with Mission Possible Radio. He wrote a protest letter to the FDA for the food additive neotame, cousin to aspartame. So the other thing is that they rename, or they use an alternate name so that it appears to be a different kind of artificial sugar sweetener, chemically generated, but it's still an artificially generated, chemically generated, unsafe sugar substitute. Mark Gold's Aspartame Toxicity Information Center, that's the one I told you about, that's in Concord. So, they've been trying for years to muzzle this information. And the other thing is info on MSG. I spoke about that last week, the other neurotoxin. It talks about his fight with the FDA over labeling food products containing MSG. This program is dedicated to Kelly Matlock, who passed away on April 24th from brain tumors caused by aspartame. MSG is now being sprayed on vegetable crops. So it would appear, again, this is from www.aspartamekills.com. I mean, it just, and you wonder, how did the Federal Drug Administration become so corrupt? And why was it allowed? Where were the federal authorities when it came to putting a stop to that? The same way that they stopped Al Capone during the Prohibition, when at the federal level, law enforcement was brought in to put a stop to illegal liquor and all the crime that went along with that. So how come our own government can't seem to generate enough muscle to take down all of these companies? And put those people in jail for crimes against humanity. There are so many websites. Mission Possible at the nation's capital. If you want to write, if you don't have a computer, but you have a television, P.O. Box 220102, Chantilly, Virginia, CHAN Zanelli T Tom ILLY, Virginia 20153-0102. Again, that's Mission Possible, Dr. Betty Martini. Nation's Capital, P.O. Box 220102, Chantilly, Virginia 20153-0102. They are registered as a nonprofit organization. Now this one, when I read this one, I almost fell out. I just could not believe this. This is our government falling flat on its face when it comes to operational procedures of safety and precaution. Northfield woman pleads to VA health care fraud. This is Concord. A Northfield woman who falsely claimed to be a veteran has pleaded guilty in U.S. District Court to health care fraud. Misty, now this is, I'm going to pronounce it, but if I mispronounce it, it's not meant out of discourtesy, because it's spelled MacijeWski. So I'm going to attempt Masujiski, 35, obtained more than $29,000 in health benefits from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Health Administration by fraudulently claiming to be a veteran of combat. The Veterans Health Administration pays for more than $8.7 million honorably discharged men and women to receive medical treatment and or other benefits for their service-related injuries and illnesses at VA and non-VA medical facilities. And when you consider the $8.7 million, that's a very small amount of money for all of the men and women who have been wounded and need medical care. To receive medical treatment and other benefits for their service-related injuries and illnesses at VA and non-VA medical facilities. To obtain these benefits, a veteran submits an application to the VHA. In this document, the veteran is required to state the dates of her military service and combat duty and a description of her service-related illness or injury. In the application, Masujiski submitted to the VHA on October 3, 2012, she falsely claimed to be a veteran of the U.S. Army and that she was honorably discharged after serving in combat. The application was mistakenly approved by the VHA due to an administrative error. Please. While living in Massachusetts after the application was approved, she fraudulently received benefits totaling $8,154.58, which were paid to a halfway house in Boston and applied to medical services she received from the VA hospital in Boston. After Masujiski moved to Northfield in July 2013, she fraudulently received benefits totaling $21,287.55, which were paid to non-VA medical services providers and applied to medical services she received from the VA hospital in Manchester. Masujiski is scheduled to be sentenced on September 28th. She's facing up to 10 years in prison and a maximum fine of $250,000. And where is she going to get $250,000? Unless she falsifies more paperwork and the VA pays her. Think about that. Think about that. With all of the computer systems and all the sophisticated software that this country has, how is it that somebody like her could have gotten away with this fraud? Just think about that. Here's another fraud of the day that's really going to rock you. This one, this is unbelievable. This comes from Watchdog Fraud of the Day. If you want to get in touch with them, their email address is info@watchdog.org. all lowercase. When the Department of Homeland Security raided a woman's home, they found evidence way beyond their expectations. Sometimes it's nice to be surprised. Who doesn't like a surprise party or an unexpected bonus at work? An article published by the Virginian Pilot tells about some federal investigators who raided the home of a business owner looking for evidence of one crime, but discovered way more than they could have ever imagined. The story reports on a woman who operated a landscaping and cleaning business out of her home. Investigators assumed she was also running a small operation selling fraudulent ID cards to illegal migrant workers. When the Department of Homeland Security raided this woman's home, they found evidence way beyond their expectations. They found 17 banker boxes filled with 1,754 fraudulent tax returns and 777 tax refund checks ranging from $4,000 to more than $7,000 each. She even had them organized in folders and labeled with names. They also found 485 letters from the Internal Revenue Service regarding assignments of ID numbers and several templates that could be used to make fraudulent W-2 forms and Mexican passports. It looks like they hit the jackpot. The overwhelming evidence pointing to a larger tax fraud warranted the assistance of the IRS. Investigators discovered that the woman, who previously worked as a tax preparer, and her co-conspirators either purchased or otherwise obtained W-2 forms from migrant workers using assumed identities. She then concealed the names, social security numbers, and addresses of the assumed identities and wrote in different information. She also applied for individual taxpayer ID numbers, which are issued by the IRS to people who have to pay taxes but don't have or are not eligible to obtain social security numbers. Then she served as the notary on the identification number application and used the fraudulently obtained ITINs on the W-2s. Court documents show that the woman stole $7.2 million through her con. However, she spent all of it on a gambling habit, an indoor soccer business, expensive birthday parties, and NFL season tickets. Her negative net worth can be mostly attributed to one casino she visited over 281 times in 3 years. The article states that the 50-year-old woman collapsed in court when she was sentenced to 12 years in prison for her role in the tax fraud scheme that involved more than 1,700 fraudulent tax returns over a 6-year period. According to the story, during fiscal year 2014, the IRS received more than 7,600 identity theft leads involving approximately 1.47 million returns, claiming more than $6.8 billion in refunds. Congratulations to DHS and IRS for putting an end to this woman's scam. Now, if they can do this to this one woman, how come they can't stop the frauds of workers' compensation by American employers and their fraudulent insurance company providers? So again, it's mind-boggling. It is absolutely mind-boggling that it is so easy to get over on our government. Who's watching? Who's really watching? I mean, anybody can walk in and assume any kind of an identity and just get past all of this alleged security and go to town, and steal from the American people their hard generated and provided tax dollars that provide all of these programs, all of this information, all of these alleged protections against any kind of future calamity. And look at this. This woman, for 6 to 7 years, she defrauded in the millions of dollars just so that she could gamble. She didn't even use it for humanitarian purposes except her own. Now, there's been some controversy about female internal products that may or may not cause death and suffering. There is a history that goes back to 1970, and I was looking it up so that I could tell you why I'm addressing this, because it's another manufacturing calamity in the making, in the sense of a woman inserting artificial products that are in the form of an internal hygiene product to deal with the monthly processes that women have to go through each month, their menses. So women have used tampons during menstruation for thousands of years. However, the company Tampax designed the tubular insertable internal hygiene product, but it came out that it caused toxic shock syndrome, and one man sued. His wife died of toxic shock syndrome because the internal hygiene product that she used had a poisonous substance that just killed her. It just killed her. Dr. Philip N. Tierno, Jr., Director of Clinical Microbiology and Immunology at NYU Langone Medical Center, helped determine that tampons were behind toxic shock syndrome cases in the early 90s. He blames the introduction of higher absorbency tampons in 1978, as well as the relatively recent decision by manufacturers to recommend that these items be worn overnight for the increased incidence of toxic shock syndrome. It talks to you like you're an idiot. It says, follow package directions for insertion. Choose the lowest absorbency needed for one's flow. Consider using cotton or cloth rather than rayon. Now that's very important. Changing them at least every 4 to 6 hours. Alternate between the internal hygiene product and the sanitary pad. Following these guidelines could help protect people who use these internal products. But the thing is that the human condition, the way that God created human beings, is that you're not supposed to put poison in your body of any kind, no matter how well manufactured it is, because when it's dry, it's not poisonous. But when it becomes moist from the secretion of the monthly menstrual cycle, that's when the danger happens. Or an IUD that shifts either by accident or somehow it shifts from where it was inserted to keep a woman from getting pregnant, and it causes irreparable harm. Let's see if I can here. At one time, they used to use sea sponges from the ocean, but they had to stop doing that because these sea sponges were not cleaned well enough during the manufacturing process. It contained sand, grit, and bacteria. So this also caused toxic shock syndrome. So the history of our country is that enough research is never done So that if one or two or three subjects don't get affected, that seems to be the yardstick by which an acceptability factor is reached. Listen to this. Some internal products are made with cotton or rayon or polyester, polyethylene, polypropylene, and fiber finishes. These are all chemically generated internal hygiene products that once wet can release their own chemical intake or their own chemical composition, and it flows into your bloodstream. And, you know, we're taught to blindly trust, all these advertisements. And then, I've seen over the years that within a year or two of a product that is advertised on television, especially where women's health is concerned or men's health is concerned, it becomes a lawsuit. Too many people have been victimized, and allegedly there's billions of dollars that has been set aside to provide financial resolutions to proven victims of whatever that violation or that product that either made them sick or caused their death. And so I go back to air quality. Today, I had to do quite a bit of driving because I had some errands to run. And there's all of these construction sites all over the city. There's almost no place you can go where you don't run into that. And you have and this police officer or police officers, sometimes there's more than one. They're standing in the middle of construction that's emitting all of this poisonous, toxic air, not to mention the emissions from the cars. And I can't understand why they're not being protected. On channel 267, I watch a lot of game shows. Well, not a lot. Family Feud mostly. And the advertisements are usually nothing but attorneys and companies that are suing or that have the ability to sue certain companies who have been proven to be negligent in the production of whatever product they produced. And there's all of this money just waiting to be scooped up, even if your family member has died. And these are all work-related, honest, hardworking citizens who went out there and did their jobs and died for it, or became so physically challenged by the emissions of the products, the product emissions that they worked with, the poor air quality, the lack of protective devices to keep them from breathing all this horrible stuff into their bodies. They're dead. And some very prematurely of age. Or they're in a wheelchair, or they're on a breathing apparatus, after working their tails off in an honest job, making an honest living. So I can't help but be of the perception that the America that tried to be the America that it wanted to be has never happened. It's sort of like a catch-22. You want to believe because you believe in God and you believe in your country and you believe in the Constitution, and your family members have served this country since World War I. And yet you've seen the contradictions. They're so pervasive that it appears to be a normal way of life. You can get away with abusing the rights of another human being because you have the title and you're in that perceived network of other title holders who will allow it to happen. if Mayor Gatz is reelected, I will be so incredibly upset that I think I would really move out of Manchester, because he has allowed so much disallowing of the rule of law and code compliance and the rights of people, and his selectiveness, or the appearance of his selectiveness, that it's just going to be more of the same. That nobody has the nads to step up to this guy and say enough is enough. The law says that enough is enough. The law is our dictator in the sense of constitutionality. It's our Bible. It's our light in a dark place. But it's not working. It's not working. And I don't know why he's been allowed to get away with so much. Again, I really believe that there is a secret agenda by those that he associates with behind closed doors that has nothing to do with constitutionality. It's all about the greed need. And whatever that greed need is. And it victimizes other people and their rights. And the fact that a person goes to work every day, works 9 to 5, the value of them as human beings is devalued, because they're not the appearance is that they're not well dressed, they're not well manicured, they don't drive an expensive car, they don't eat at the ritziest restaurants. That appears to be the yardstick by which a lot of these people measure each other in that higher echelon of greed need. I have more respect for a man or a woman that gets their hands dirty and goes home and does a good day's work and earns a good day's pay, or not. Some of them are seriously underpaid, but they do it anyway because they have families to support. And they have their own self-respect to consider. But this is sort of like the free pass for people like Mr. Gatzis and all of his posse that will use the personal integrity of an employee who benefits them by their good work, but by not rewarding them with an honest paycheck or a fair paycheck. Or even respectable treatment. I was in Nashua today, and I overheard something, and I don't know how true it is, but considering how it was said and why it was said, there is a large street elementary school principal in Nashua, New Hampshire, that is a bully. That is considered a bully by those that was speaking about her, and that in one of the teachers' break rooms, she was heard to say that the way she relaxes with her boyfriend or her husband is that they put on porn and they get naked. Now, this is a conversation in a school. And the fact that she is a bully and that she comes into Manchester and frequents people in the educational community is very disturbing. There is too much bullyism by the people that hold the titles that are not supposed to be bullies. You can be a firm, even an aggressive leader of whatever title you hold, to keep things on the straight and narrow without being a bully or without violating the rights of those people that are in your employ. And bullyism is something that I witnessed as a kid, as a young adult, and in the workplace as a grown adult. And it's not fair. It's not supposed to happen. It's against the law. That's the thing that I've never been able to, what's the word I want to use here? Assimilate, because it's a contradiction. It's just like some of the cleric that wear the robes of their particular, religion, and hide behind the cloak of that to molest children, to contradict the rights of another human being because they are perceived as not acceptable. And I repeat myself a lot where non-heterosexuals are concerned. God put life on this planet. God put life into those human beings who practice a different kind of sexuality. And they're no more predatory than the heterosexual who hides behind their cleric titles, their teacher's titles, their coach titles, their business titles, to commit sexual acts on either young children or their employees. The conduct of a human being, male, female, straight, or not, is what counts. It shouldn't be that anybody has the right to hurt another person because they don't agree with their sexuality, their skin color, as long as they don't think criminally, what they think. We have gun laws that are so contradictory. A person can go to a gun show anywhere in the country and buy a gun without a license, without a background check, and then wreak havoc by using it to kill innocent people. Why isn't that being fixed? Why isn't that being taken care of? They can track that gun or that assault rifle or whatever by its serial number. But if it's burned off or if it's eliminated, the tracking stops. Just like some cars, the VIN numbers are changed. So, just like this airplane pilot that I spoke about that killed all those innocent people, 7 different doctors, 7 appointments, psychiatrists that knew that he was unfit to fly, but they were afraid to speak up because of the law that said that they could go to jail for divulging, the privacy of that patient. But look what it's cost. Sometimes there has to be an alternate solution for an urgency that is more important than anything else that could happen and did happen. Hundreds and hundreds of innocent lives gone because of the rule that was so inflexible that the doctors felt so threatened that they would go to jail that it cost all of those human lives their lives. There has to be a sense of balance in the rule of law. There has to be those that follow the rule of law because that's their job. But here in Manchester, you can get away with just about anything. You can really get away with just about anything. If you're in that perceived group of cronies or the posse of this one or that one, you can get away with anything. You can cause the death of children and human beings in apartments that are so out of code compliant, it's ludicrous. And nobody is held accountable. The federal government does not stop funding these agencies that provide this housing for unsuspecting refugees and immigrants and even American citizens who fall by the wayside or something happens in their lives that interrupts their right to earn a living. And they qualify for assistance, and then it's like they have these landlords lined up just waiting. And if you go to the Federal Housing Authority as a landlord, you get your 70% right up front. Every first or third of the month, you will get your 70% from the federally funded programs of housing. So they don't care. They got the money up front. So something has to happen. Either the law has to grow, a new set of testicles, or we're all going to go because it's not working. The law is almost atrophied in the sense of the experiences that have been allowed for decades and even centuries. But thanks to the electronic age, it's not that easy anymore. So you decide whether you want to keep condoning all of the acts of all of these people that you so blindly support, and just consider what would happen if it happened to you, if the circumstances of another person that put them in the system happened to you. What would happen to you? What would you lose? Would you become homeless? Would you continue to be poisoned by medications and foods that have aspartame in it? Would you be mistreated by the system? Would you become homeless? Would you have to wait in the freezing snow on a winter day in a wheelchair waiting to get on a bus because they won't come and pick you up at your home? Thanks to Mayor Gatzis and all his hand-picked puppets at the MTA. So you've got to decide if you want that kind of a mayor, again, running this city, or not running it at all, and just letting it fall apart continuously. Please, please remember that freedom isn't free, and so long until next time.